All right, I'm very pleased to be joined by, and we're back on Monday. Pleased to be joined by my business partner, a dear friend, mentor, someone who believed in me early in the years of Herald PR and joined me as the president of Herald PR. We've grown the business a lot together, but Juda Engelmayer, has a very specialized expertise in crisis management and mitigation. So I thought it would be interesting, especially during this interesting time that we're dealing with, to have you on. But first, Juda, where are you?
I am at Herald PR's corporate office on 36th Street in Manhattan.
Very cool. I thought so from the screens behind. So you're in the office.
I am in the office, yes.
And where have you been quarantining?
I've been quarantining in my house in Bergen County, New Jersey, in Teaneck. And every once in a while, I just got to get out because it's easy. Sometimes it gets too easy to work from home. You have to get to work and feel the experience of being in an office place and get work done, get more thinking done, get more writing done when you're at a setting that you're used to.
Absolutely. And I think that I know that we're not essential services, but if you're the only one in the office, and you're going in and out by car, I don't see the issue with it. And I'm glad someone's checking the mail.
So I just also want to correct that notion, because essential services, people have been wondering what that is. Well, businesses like ours were never asked to shut down our operations. We were asked to not have people come into the office and crowd the spaces. Unlike a retail shop, people like us were never asked to close. We're not deemed essential or not essential. As long as we can do our business remotely, we're just like teachers. Teachers are essential services, but no one's having classes in schools. They're having classes on Zoom. So the notion of essential services was only for businesses that rely on walk-in customers and need people present in their store. I need to make that clear because I want people to understand that while we're not an essential service, I'm allowed to be in my office, I'm allowed to work, and we're allowed to continue doing what we're doing. Just like you're doing the program for your podcast and for our business. You're not an essential. I don't want people to think that we're violating your rules. We've always been allowed to operate. That's my point.
Absolutely. And I think that, we've been fortunate enough. Our business is in a sector where, and our team is amazing. We've been able to, work from home. Again, it was a transition. It was something that culturally everyone wanted initially. Like, I want to work from home. I want to work from home. And I think what people would give to work from the office right now to get out of the home.
Yeah. I think that this is going to change the landscape of how businesses operate a little bit and how commercial real estate works in big cities like ours, and even residential real estate, where you have people who've been holed up at home in apartments and say they need to get out to the suburbs in case this ever happens again to need more space. But yes, I think that a business like ours realizes reluctantly, like everyone wants to work from home, and I like the idea of getting together and working in the office with the camaraderie. Our staff has been doing a fantastic job of doing that through Zoom, through phone calls, and through emails. They're staying together. Maybe once a week, they get together in an office or a conference room and meet and greet and feel like they're connected. Then they can go back working at home. I don't know what our new paradigm is going to look like, but I think that you're looking at a change of corporate America across the spectrum, where companies realize they can work with less real estate and still have people come to the office on few occasions to get together to feel like they're part of a bigger deal, and then go back and work from their office spaces at home.
And in New York, it's not even a conversation that we can have yet. Like, I've thought about having the conversation, but we can't talk about it. In New Orleans, with our New Orleans office, it's in phase 1, mid-June, maybe they'll be in phase 2 and we can start having those conversations, but certainly not in New York City yet.
Well, I don't know where you are right now. I think upstate New York, which is slowly starting to open up, but phase 1 of New York is happening June 8th. New Jersey, Bergen County, where I am, is already in phase 1. And as of the 8th or 9th, he's expected to open up outdoor dining restaurants and other phase 2 retail. So I think this is happening faster than you think. And what I've been seeing, since I've been coming to the office, not a secret, I've been coming in a few times a week. I park in the city. I got to tell you, traffic has been phenomenal. And if it stays like this forever, I'll be very happy. But that's doomed to end soon. But I do think that people have been coming in more. Like the garage I was parking in, I had to just move because there's no space left. So people are starting to crowd the spaces again, sneak back into their offices. I think that at some point after close to 90 days of quarantine, the human nature is I need to spread out. I need to go back to whatever semblance of normalcy my life was. So you're starting to see that people are forcing the government issue, because if the government just says no, 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 at some point people are just going to do it anyway. So now even Phil Murphy, who last week had zero plan to reopen, is now entering phase 2, because people are just 90 degrees. You're not keeping people out of the parks. You're not keeping people away from the water. Remember, Bill de Blasio said he wasn't opening up the beaches in New York for Memorial Day. Yet the beaches were open. People weren't swimming, but they were walking on the beach. He said if he only went from we're not opening the beaches to you can't swim or have barbecues. So he moved the needle. The people moved the needle for him, because they weren't going to keep him off the beaches. And no matter what, we don't have an entire police force to monitor Brighton and Coney Island, kick people out. So even so, the population, civilization told the mayor through their actions, start phase 1, get it done. And slowly but surely it's happening. So now New York City, as of June 8th, is entering phase 1. The beaches were open for Memorial Day. New Jersey is now entering phase 2. So you'll start seeing more of it, and not because the governments wanted to, because the people wanted to.
I agree with that completely. I think that the people have spoken, and I think that part of the protest and everything that's going on, obviously it's rooted in other things, but I think it's frustration. And I think that's coming. But we're not here to talk about our internal culture and when we're open the office. Let's talk about your. I want to tell everyone a little bit about your career from the days, in the controller's office, and how you got into PR, and then how you became this national leading expert at crisis management. So
I've actually had tremendous experiences right from the get-go. My early days, I was right when I graduated Queens College. I started working for the New York State Assembly for a man who has now been indicted and charged and tried twice and awaiting sentencing. But he was probably one of the longest term speakers of this New York State Assembly, Shelley Silver. And regardless what people think of him or ethically for what he might have been accused of doing, one of the most phenomenal, savvy political minds. He managed to jockey that leadership and power for close to 25 years. You got to know something to do it. And I had an opportunity to work close with him, to sit right near him and listen to him and hear him. And from there, after working for that, he helped me get a job at the Anti-Defamation League just as the Crown Heights riots were breaking out. I knew nothing, and Abe Foxman and Harriet Bogard, who was my immediate boss, told me, go to Crown Heights, sit with the bias unit, the police department, the Black community, the Jewish community. Don't say a word, take notes, listen, and report back. And you know what? You learn so much from people who've been trained doing it for years and years and years. And I had a front seat to that. And then afterwards, I had the opportunity. Right after that, I got a job working for Carl McCall, the New York State Control. The first time an African American was elected statewide, and I was part of his election twice. And that was a phenomenal experience. And Carl, I got to say, is also a very savvy politician. He is smart. He knows how to play his audiences. And I helped him write speeches. I helped him do press. I helped him walk through several different communities and get elected. And you learn an immense amount from him. And because of all that, when I first started working my first public relations job for Howard Rubenstein, who was the scion of public relations in I would think in the United States, he worked for every major public leader and business that you could possibly think of in the 70s and 80s. And early 90s. And when I started working for Howard, my first assignment was working for the Foreign Ministry of Israel just as the Second Intifada was breaking out. So I was in charge of putting a labor guy, Alon Pincus, up on national television every day defending Israel although he was working for a Likud government at the time, but he was defending Israel for all people, for all Jews, for for evangelical Christians who support Israel. He was representing their voice across the globe on a daily basis for a year and a half, 2 years. I did that, and I think it was another phenomenal experience, because if you know about public relations as it comes to Israel, it's a very challenging deal, and you're always being either praised or attacked on every different side. And I was helping the Foreign Ministry of Israel and their agent in America navigate that. Or not their agent, I'm sorry, wrong word for public relations, not their agent, their communications person in America, who's Alon Pincus, define Israel's role, what Israel needed to do, and gain support for Israel for the 2 years during that challenge. And then after that, I got an offer from the American Jewish Congress to work for them as the director of communications. And I had the opportunity to work in the halls of Congress in DC, as well as in the Knesset in Israel, back and forth between Israel, Washington, New York, working on legislative issues that dealt with civil rights in America, defense needs for Israel, support of the United States, and once again, more fascinating experiences with high-level leaders, uber wealthy philanthropists who supported the cause, and I got to meet tremendous world leaders through that as well. And then I worked for then I went and going to another public relations job a few years later, where I was just doing a lot of corporate public advocacy, philanthropy, everything that all my previous my previous career moves has put me in touch with. I was managing public relations and crisis communications for those various parties. And then in 2016, as you know, you and I joined together and took all that skill and brought it here. So every stage in my life, I have had some of the most phenomenal opportunities. I've traveled with evangelical Christians trying to save the world. I was in Haiti the day that Aristide was overthrown, and we were sitting with one of my clients who was helping counsel the rebel leader, a guy named Guy Philippe, to lay down his guns and go and do this peacefully. That same evangelical leader was with Charles Taylor in Liberia when he stepped down and helped get him to leave peacefully and not cause a riot, a race riot, a war, or raise a military fuss, and walked out of the country. Center of history. I mean, in so many different ways, and I have been fortunate to see it, fortunate to be part of it, fortunate to have clients rely on it and trust my my thought process. And through it, as you know, I've met celebrities. I've helped Paula Dean on an issue that she had some years back. I've worked with Tribeca Film Festival way back when it first launched back in 2000. I mean, I have every different industry, any industry you could think of. We work with the Israel's ambassador. And you and I have even worked with Israel's ambassador to the United Nations for several years, because of all the people that we knew. They knew us, and one thing led to another, and they wanted us to be there to be their counsel on both public relations, communications, and even crisis communications. I think that every career choice I've made, some of them have been difficult. Not all of them were the right ones. Some of them, obviously, it affected family life and personal life, which I could have some regrets about. But in the end, they all lay the foundation for what we're doing today. And it gave me a background that I think very few others have had the fortune to have. And I'm immensely respectful of it, very appreciative of the opportunities that I've had, mindful of the people that helped me get those opportunities. And that's my career.
That's awesome. Judah, obviously super impressive, and I knew it, but I appreciate you sharing it with everyone. And, we've definitely been fortunate enough to capitalize on your experience. And I continue to learn from you every day, through your vast experience, in running the company and growing things. So now for your expertise your passion, your love, crisis communications and mitigation.
Right.
Can you, what's the difference between straight media, straight public relations and crisis communications and mitigation? And how does that play out as far as onboarding a client and taking people on, et cetera, et cetera?
So the simple answer is that straight public relations is proactive media, whereas we have a client like HeraldPR, and we want to be in every newspaper as the experts on public relations and how to market your company, how to market your brand. That's us calling up reporters, calling up newspapers, calling up producers, and trying to get our own expertise out there in front so that HeraldPR comes up with the word public relations and communications on a regular basis. That is proactive. You're trying to force a story, convince a reporter that your story and that your business model has an answer for XYZ, whatever's going on in the world right now, in the business world, in the social world, in the political world, whatever realm you're working in. You're trying to push yourself out there. I know I'm using Herald as another example, but we have lots of clients out there on the.
It's a great plug. I appreciate it. No,
thank you. So on the law side, on the finance side, on the technology side, we have clients that want to be known for what they do in their industry, so they can speak to stakeholders, whether it's people to help them raise money, whether it's investors, like I just said, whether it's regulators, possibly, whether it's just the public to buy their service or companies to use their service, buy their product to use their services. That's proactive public relations. You're trying to pitch a story and get a reporter to write about it. Crisis communications becomes a little different when sometimes you're trying to kill a story. You hear stories coming out, and you don't want that story out there because you think it's going to help. It might hurt you or hurt your company or hurt your reputation. You're trying to mitigate the damage by either not having the story not published or having the story published with the proper facts and sequence of events put in there. You want your narrative told along with that. It used to be when I first started this business a long time ago, you can kill stories. When I worked for Howard Rubenstein, if there was a story coming out about a client that wasn't going to be good, true or not, whether the client deserved the story or not, I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to mention clients' names. But if you wanted to kill the story, there are ways of calling up the publisher, the reporter, the editor, the producer, and convincing them not to run the story. It won't be in their best interest, or maybe even trade a different client's good story or idea for, I'll give them first dibs on something that's even better for them if they kill this one. The media landscape has changed so much, and because of social media and because of blogs and because of personal individual editing and writing and chronicling, you can't kill a story. Because if I can get the New York Post, the New York Times, or Wall Street Journal to kill a story, some blogger is going to write it and expose it anyway. See, so these newspapers are no longer killing stories. If they think it's going to get out there, they're going to want to put it out. So what you have to do today is try to mitigate the damage, or control the narrative, or not control, sorry, push the narrative that you need to be told, that you need to tell. And that is by working with reporters, first of all, knowing the client cold, knowing all their issues, understanding exactly what went on from A to Z. And I tell every client that has an issue, please treat me like a lawyer. Tell me everything. That way I don't get stuck lying to a reporter or telling a story that I can't get out of, or spinning a tale that I can't unwind. That might not be true. Tell me everything, and then let us as a team figure out how we can mitigate it and generate our own narrative that's going to help make the story not come out so bad, or make the story even come out well for us. And that is a challenging area of public relations that I find fascinating, and it relies on, first of all, reporters having a relationship with you, not just reporters. The editors, the producers, the publishers, having them have a relationship with you, knowing that you are someone they can count on and rely on. Also, them knowing that you're going to tell them the truth. Even reporters know that I won't lie to them. They know that I will not tell them something that is patently untrue. I might not give them all the facts. I might tell them I can't tell you beyond what I'm telling you right now, but I will not lie to them, and they trust me on that. And I think that on various different occasions with certain clients, I was expected to, and I don't think anyone can ever catch me in that. I think one of the keys to doing crisis communications is having the trust of the client and having the trust of the media. You have to have trust on both sides. And it's not easy because they're often opposing viewpoints, and they're often asking you, they're both asking you different things, which sometimes if you don't navigate right, can get into a lot of trouble. You piss off your client and you lose that money, which is what you need to survive. But you also get a reputation that they'll speak to other people and tell them that you're not the one to rely on. And then on the media side, you can't possibly tell media my client didn't do X or didn't do Y, because everything you're saying would be deemed as untrue anyhow. So it's very hard to have that, to navigate that and keep both parties happy relatively. And that's why I like it. It's a delicate dance every single day. You can't let your guard down. You have to have all the facts in your head. You have to know what you're dealing with and always be expected to pivot. It's the reason I love it so much, Warren, is because it keeps you on your toes. It doesn't get boring, and it's constantly racing your mind. A lot of people tend to tend to when they get bored in downtime during coronavirus time, a lot of people have been playing more crossword puzzles and playing more games, whether on their phones or on their devices, to keep their minds busy while they're not doing their everyday routine. What I do every day it's always keeping me spinning, because every day I'm worried that I'm going to get trapped either by a client or by media or by some unfortunate situation. So you're always doing a dance in your head. It helps keep you mentally alert as well, and I thrive on it.
That's a great answer. And one of my next questions was what's the greatest challenge with crisis? But I think you already answered that. So I know that when we look to hire folks, like we're always, especially like on our corporate team, we're looking to hire folks. We're always thinking like, hey, maybe they could be, a good person for crisis. You have this like amalgam or years of experience where you meandered through things, and all of that came together to create your experience that allows you to do that. And this is the action that you love. Like, but in looking for, because again, we hire people by feel, by interview, like we do things right. But again, to be someone who's good at crisis is much harder to identify. Like if you had to put it in a couple of words, like what would you think is the best, like what qualities, are needed to be a crisis expert?
Two key qualities. One is the ability to listen, to shut your mouth and listen, because very often dealing with a crisis means you have to be able to, first of all, absorb everything that's going on around you. And that means don't immediately rush to speak, don't rush to judgment, take it all in and take your time to listen and learn. The second thing is to learn to be calm. I wasn't always this way, and a lot of what I deal with.
I'm still not, as we often.
You have some seasoning to tend to, and that'll come over time. But the truth is, it's learning to pace yourself and be calm. It's learning that, well, that my standard answer to a client is, I don't like to ever say no comment. I like to have some sort of comment, but I'm never in a hurry to rush to that comment. Because the minute you try to rush to anything, whether it's if a client calls you with a problem and you immediately give an answer, your answer is just because you want to fill the void of space and have the client think you're smart. I'd rather the client hear dead space and say, I'll get back to you in a few days, and think about the issue, and then come back to them with a real well thought out answer. Same thing with the press. I'd rather say, you know what, I know the press, I don't have a few days, but I'd rather say, you know what, New York Post, Daily News, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, I cannot answer that right yet. Let me listen to your question. Let me hang up the phone with you. Give me 45 minutes. Give me an hour. Give me 2 hours to respond to this, and I will get back to you. Because if you're so quick to rush, you're going to mess up. You have to have patience. You have to be able to listen, and you have to be able to stay calm. And those are key. And you know what? And those they can be taught, but it also takes time. It's not, my first reaction all the time has been to, I want to be known. I want to be seen. I want to be valued. And the only way to do that is to constantly talk. And it's not. The way to be valued, and the way to really do it, is to be calm, to listen, to let all parties know that you are an ear for them. A lot of clients rely on me not just as crisis communication, just a PR person. I'm a therapist in a sense, because I listen to what they have to say. Yes, sure, I understand. I hear you. Let's see what we can do without that.
We need to get better couches in the office. We need to get.
but that's what it comes to. In order to be good at this job, you can't just do your job. You have to be a counselor to them as well. And if they can, if I have reporters call me up talking about their children, about their lives, about their marriages, about their families, because I'm not just calling them. And when I talk to them, it's not just when I call them, they don't just expect, oh, Judah wants something from me for a client now. You become part of their lives, someone they rely on, someone they value, and then that becomes invaluable to everybody.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, I witnessed your relationships with journalists, with producers. It's not relationships, like they're your friends, they're your colleagues, they're people that you work with and that you've been working with for years, in a great way. And it's something to, and I think that's like a great answer, as far as that's how you get things done within the media is through relationships. But everyone knows, like I always say, as far as social media, if you just announce yourself and say my profile's up and I don't say, but you don't participate actively in that social network, it's like walking into a room, networking event, saying, hi, my name is Warren. Hi, my name is Judah. Bye, I'm out. I'm glad I introduced myself. But maintaining those relationships consistently over time, whether it's online or, in your case in person with, with these journalists, I think is key to success. I want to switch over to move over a little bit into, obviously in dealing with Corona, we touched upon it at the beginning and, the reopenings and whatnot. The news cycle has been tough, right? I was talking to someone earlier today. It was Trump or anti-Trump. It was impeachment. Then it was Corona. And now we're bleeding into the riots and protesting. What would you advise a client? Let's rewind a few weeks and then we can talk about, current day also, but what would you advise a client who's trying to get themselves into the media right now during the coronavirus, because it's singularly focused on Corona. There's a special section in the Journal. There's a special, report, and every day it's how many press conferences can you watch? New Jersey, New York, the president, Fauci, he's there, he's not there. I mean, that's the news right now. So how would you, how would you advise clients to get into the news cycle right now? And how have we done that? And also, how do you carefully get back to the regular news cycle without being insensitive to the fact that people are still dying every day from Corona?
So it's a very good question, and the questions a lot of clients have asked us, as we know, and some with more success than others, we've answered. But the answer to the clients is don't be tone deaf. Don't be tone deaf and think that what you have to do is the only thing going on in the world, because as much as it matters to you, as much as your product or your service or whatever matters to you right now, take a look at what's out there. If you speak and keep on speaking and say the same things, you're going to be ignored, and not only be ignored, at some point they're going to remember your name as just being useless. You don't want that, even if you have the most useful product in the world. So don't be tone deaf, and you have to tell your clients that as important as you are, take a step back, and we'll get out how important you are. Let's just figure out how to use the cycle that we have at the moment. And then what we do with that is to tell clients, let's figure out, we have coronavirus. Let's see if we can fit you into the news cycle with that. That doesn't mean you have to be an expert in medicine. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert in science, an expert in research. None of that stuff. You can be a lawyer talking about human resources and the laws of people who don't want to come to work, who want to come to work, and what a company can do to you as an employee for things that yesterday would have been things that you can get fired for. Today, let's talk about the law on that. So for a lawyer, let's move to human resources and the law on employee law. On other lawyers, it's contract issues. How do you sign contracts? How do you get notaries? How do you go to court and do all these things without being present
or commentary on thought leadership, the flurry of bankruptcies that have been going on.
Correct. And then with finance, it's the market and the weird market cycle we're in, and you have people talk about that. We have whether it's a client that's talking about the stocks that are moving, the stocks that aren't moving, and why they think so in this time. Then if you have people who are actually dealing with the medical side, whether it's a hospital and a senior center and an ambulance service, things like that, then you know how to put them into the cycle. It's the clients that you'd like technology. How do you get someone who designs new technology into it? Well, let's figure out how your technology helps offices work from home. How do you get a technology that helps individuals keep in touch with their loved ones who are far away, they can't go visit them right now? How do you use technology to make a Passover Seder for 25 people when you can only have 3 sitting at a table? Those are things that's getting your product, your service, your idea, some of what you do into the news cycle. And let's say you do none of that stuff. You know what? Maybe I'll take a bunch of money from my corporate foundation and buy masks for people who need it, buy meals for people who need it, help. Right now, you know that there's lots of people in need, from food insecurity to needing of medical supplies, whether it's masks and antiseptic and hand cream to ventilators or who knows what. If your company doesn't get involved in any stuff that I mentioned beforehand, you can take $10,000 out of your company and buy masks, and then you get plenty of press out of that and talk about why that was important to you, and then you deliver the masks. We have a client that's donating medical supplies, masks, and antiseptic to women's prisons because they feel it's an underserved population. No one really talks about them very much, and there are plenty of female-only prisons around the country, which we rarely ever hear about. And they're an organization based on women's values and ideals that doesn't have anything really to plug into the coronavirus thing. So they are donating their time, using their philanthropic connections, and using some of their money to do good things around the United States with that. And so we've told our clients, don't be tone deaf, change your modus operandi a little bit right now, and realize that if you're good to the reporters now, give them what they want now, they will come back to you. Getting back to the end of your question, they will start coming back to you now that we're all coming into phase 1, phase 2, coming out of this, people are going back to work, stores are reopening, restaurants reopening, retail's reopening. Now they're going to say, you know what, you were so good to me on your client was so good on this, that, and the other thing. Now, how are they moving towards reopening? What is their product and business? And then, before you know it, in 3-4 months from now, coronavirus will be a not distant memory, but it'll be a memory, and we might still have it in front of us, but maybe not as serious as it is right now. And we will talk about regular stuff again. And the people who help the reporters and the producers today are going to be the first ones the reporters and producers are going to come to tomorrow to help promote their own products. That's how you do it. The minute they think you're tone deaf, they don't want to hear you anymore, and nothing you say is going to matter. Of course, you can always build yourself back up and get yourself back in. But this is the way our company has maintained since this started. And thank God you and I have done a decent job of keeping the staff together, keeping the clients on board, and pivoting our clients towards this need so that when everything goes back to whatever normal might be, we can start pitching them on their regular business, and the reporters are going to know them and like them and say, you know what, you guys are my go-to. And that's the idea for public relations in general. No matter whether it was coronavirus now or whatever, or nothing beforehand, you want the reporters to keep on coming back to you and your client, thinking that you guys are your go-to, reliable for good, useful stories for the news cycle, good, useful stories for them to get click-throughs and advertising rates and all that stuff. And they're going to keep on coming to you.
No, it's true. I mean, it's definitely true. The sincerity as far as relationships with both reporters and, and our clients, and just, calling out the bullshit before the bullshit comes to the surface has always been, helpful. We're known as real people who, deliver results, but, who we push back on clients when we need to. We, deal with reporters and understand where they're coming from, where we need to as well. Now that we're pivoting, and I think that the news cycle is slowly, it's still Corona, but it's shifting towards, the riots and the unfortunate tragedies that happen, in Minnesota. And now, this, powder keg that's exploded throughout the nation. Again, I know that it's some pent up aggression and anger, to the quarantine and to, us being stuck at home for this long. But do you think that that's going to be the next thing that overtakes the news cycle? And like, do you even touch that as far as media? Like, how do we pivot and get a client into that news cycle?
You can't not touch it because it's all around us. It's happening in every city right now. New York City, I'm in Times Square. Our office is in time between.
Yeah, you better get out before 11.
11:30 is now. There's now a curfew where you can't walk the streets now past a certain hour in New York City because they're trying to prevent that. You can't avoid talking about it. What you want to avoid doing is entering the political realm and taking sides on who's right, who's wrong when it comes to what's going on beyond the actual facts of the events. George Floyd killed, a really bad thing. The cops were horrible on this. But if you want to get involved in who's responsible, who set the tone, whether it was a right, left, Antifa, you don't want to get in that conversation. You do not, because no matter what side you take, you're going to have another 3 sides hating you for it. So I think if you could avoid getting your company and your finances involved in that opinion debate, you want to. We want to talk about how this affects economic recovery, how this affects timelines for reopening because of coronavirus, whether or not whether there's a legal aspect to this. There's some things. There are medical aspects. People who I guess I'm not going to start suggesting ideas right now because I haven't quite thought of them all yet either, and I'm violating my own rule of speaking too fast. But there are ways you can talk about it, and you can't. Once again, don't be tone deaf to the fact, and don't pretend it's not happening. But don't rush to say things and get involved. And I think getting involved on the political discussion is probably not a good thing for a company trying to make money from all sides. If you're trying to sell goods and services to anybody, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to one ideology. And this has become partly a fight about ideology, not just about justice. This has become ideology. ideological fight, and you see it going on every day. Coronavirus, to a degree, became that way also. It wasn't just about a medical issue and a virus. It became a political issue on how it was handled, who's handling, who did what, who didn't do what, and that becomes poisonous for a client who's trying to make money in a marketplace. You want to sell a good and service. You don't, I could sell my good service to the left, the far left, the right, the far right. Anyone who wants to buy my goods and service can buy it. I don't want to only pigeonhole myself, make them only sell and make only one group think I'm the go-to for my goods and service, for my product, goods and services. So,
as some of our legal clients say, we're mercenaries, meaning them, but so are we.
You know what? McDonald's a mercenary, Burger King's a mercenary. I would even say, and I'm going to get argument that Chick-fil-A should be a mercenary. You're selling chicken sandwiches. Don't care what your personal policies are. Don't get them involved. You know what I'm saying? I think that this is going to affect a lot of our business and clients and work and economy for a little bit going forward. But don't forget, this didn't just happen with George Floyd. This happened beforehand in Atlanta about 3 weeks ago when not even by cops, just a guy was killed by I don't know, vigilantes or people who thought they were afraid of a black man, and they killed him. And then that started this era that we're in. And as soon as it happened with George Floyd, it lit up. And there are people who are genuinely angry. And part of what you're seeing now is the frustration of also obviously angry with the justice system, angry with police brutality, but also angry being pent up at home, not having a job, not having things to do. And this just helps the race. And then they watch the news, whether it's one channel or the other. I'm not mentioning anything, but when you watch those news channels, and people who have nothing to do with their time get all worked up, expend their energies on how angry they are, and translate that into what you see sometimes, a little bit out of control rioting, out of control, and it doesn't start that way. The people who are protesting George Floyd went out there angry and wanted to protest injustice. Then there are other people who wanted to join that and got carried away because out of sheer frustration for their situation right now. The coronavirus situation has left a lot of people, and I'm not going to say unemployed and jobless, because who knows whether jobs will come back, and I think a lot of them will. But for 90 days, they've been twiddling their thumbs. And just like I've been saying, garages are getting more full. People are starting to see the city starting to get a bit busier. People are coming in. People everywhere are starting to get restless. They want to get out. And if they saw this, I'm angry, I want to fight for them, I need to get out, I need to do something, it translated into what it's translated into and got out of control to a degree. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out there. If anyone wants to ask Judah any questions before we end, put it in the comments, and I'll be happy to ask Judah or share with him. But real quick, do you think the news cycle goes back after Corona? We're now in this different realm with the protests like we were just discussing, and that's taken over the news cycle. Every top story in every outlet, Twitter, Wall Street Journal, the Times, the Post. Everything across the board is. That's the top headlines, and it's getting a lot of national attention. Do you think we're too close to the election cycle, or in the election cycle, or too close to the election? That the news cycle will be more general again, or do you think that there'll be some kind of release and relief, and that we'll be able to enter the news cycle?
Listen, I think given the temperature of our political climate right now, because we're in election year, because we're in an era where people are passionate, extremely passionate about one side or the other, or one issue or the other, there's no way that we're going back to a normal news cycle. First of all, we haven't been in a normal news cycle since President Trump got elected. Let's be fair. It has been every day either pro or anti, what he did wrong, what he did right, who supports him, who doesn't support him on what side. And now this has sort of firmed that up. The coronavirus and now the activities in the streets all over the country. I think that even once the rioting and the protests died, when the protests die down, when the rioting gets under control, I still think the news cycle will be in this heated mode up until mid-November. I mean, the beginning of November when the election takes place. And depending on the result of that election, it might continue even longer.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, I have the same feeling. So normally at the end of our interviews, we plug and I ask everyone to, talk about where you can be found. So again, this is, Judah and I are partners. This is totally a plug for Herald, but Judah, tell everyone where can you find Judah Engelmayer? Where can you find Herald PR online?
150 West 36th Street. Just kidding. Online, HeraldPR.com, emerald.digital.com. And our email address information is there. Our phone number is 212-785-6600.
Correct.
It's whoever uses the landline anymore, right? So, we are located on the internet. We're located we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on the internet. We have several authorships on various different writing sites and articles and articles submission sites. And we're not hard to find. I mean, if you're looking on the brick wall, you'd probably know how to click on and find our company. And I'm not going to give out my individual email address. Most people have it. We have info@heraldpr.com if you want to send a general note, and we will get it, and then I'll respond, or Warren will respond as needed.
All right, Judah, thank you so much for taking the time. Be safe in the city, be safe in the office, and getting home. And again, I'm thanks for sharing your wisdom and knowledge that I look up to, and and sharing. I was happy to share my mentor with everyone. I appreciate it.
Should I be disappointed that no one's asked any questions?
No, it happens. We can get some afterwards.
Talk to you later.
You just answered everything.
I just answered them all, right?